Welcome, everybody. This is a meeting of the Committee of the Whole of the County of Annapolis. I'll start with the roll call. District 1.
Bruce Prout.
District 2.
Brian Fuzzy Connell.
District 3 is Alan Parrish, myself. District 4.
White Bartow.
District 5.
Lynn Longmire.
District 6.
Alec Morrison.
District 7.
David Hudson.
District 8.
Michael Gunn.
District 9.
Wendy Sheridan.
District 10.
Brad Redden.
And District 11.
Diane LeBlanc.
Thank you very much. Welcome to a warm day here in Annapolis County. You've all been provided with a copy of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote for approval of the agenda as circulated. Moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Bartow. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Next are the minutes of the regular Committee of the Whole meeting of May the 11th. They've been circulated. Are there any amendments or additions to the minutes as circulated? Councillor Redden.
Sorry. Page 5 of 86, which is page 2 of the minutes. There was an amendment to the motion, very bottom of the page, and it says it carried unanimously, and I thought that was a 10-4 and 1 against. Although thinking about it now, that may have been the final motion that carried 10-4 and 1 against.
I don't have a specific recollection myself.
Yeah, I didn't go back and check on the video, but anyways, if nobody else has that recollection, I may be wrong.
In the end result, it doesn't make any difference to the minute that was passed.
Not particularly, no.
Right. So if it's all right with you, we'll just leave it at that. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Move to receive.
Move to approve the minutes, you mean, Deputy Warden?
Yes, that's right.
Is there a second for that? Councillor Longmire seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. There's no business arising from the minutes, so we'll move into new business. First is the Nova Scotia Ground Station advertising request, and that is on page 11.
What have we done there in the past?
I beg your pardon,
What have we done there in the past?
Madam Clerk?
Page 13.
Because you support Annapolis County Search and Rescue, in the past, council has supported purchasing this ad. A half-page color, it's a half-size publication. So in the past, you have purchased a half-page color ad, which is about $560.
The example is on page 13. Bottom of the page.
Councillor Hudson?
Yes, I would make a motion to take out the half-page ad.
You mean you approve the purchase of the half-page ad? just to
That's
make it
correct.
clear. Yeah. Councillor Bartow, are you raising your hand to second that motion? Discussion with respect to the motion. Oh, there we are, Councillor Connell.
That's just a recommendation to council.
Right. Yeah. Right, so the motion would be to recommend to council that we purchase the ad. Right, thank you for that. Any further discussion? It's going to take me a while with all these faces here to make sure I don't miss anybody. So if there's a little delay, that's the reason. I think I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Next is a recommendation report application for municipal heritage registration, the Eason House. Mr. Dunphy?
Yes, good morning.
There he is. Yeah.
Annapolis County does have a heritage property bylaw. What we do is we look at properties that meet certain criteria as set out into that bylaw. In this case, we have an application submitted by the executor of an estate. The house is approximately 1770 to 1780. They are asking that the Annapolis County consider including this property in the registry of municipal heritage properties. And the way we go about that is we refer any application, meaning council refers it to the Heritage Advisory Committee. And in this case, that's what the recommended motion is, that the committee of the whole recommends the municipal council to forward this application for the Heritage Advisory Committee for their recommendation. Thank you, Warden.
Yeah. Is there anyone that would like to make the motion that we recommend to
I'll recommend.
council? Deputy Warden moves.
Yeah.
That we recommend.
I can read the recommendation.
Yes, please.
Sure, go ahead.
The committee of the whole recommendation is the committee of the whole recommend the municipal council to refer the Eason House Heritage Property application to the Heritage Advisory Committee for review recommendation for inclusion in the Registry of Heritage Property.
Second.
There's,
Deputy Warden, I would just ask if you could insert for inclusion in the Annapolis County Registry of Heritage Properties, if you don't mind.
Okay, for inclusion in the Annapolis County Registry of Heritage Properties.
Thank you.
second, Councilor LeBlanc. Mr. Dunphy,
Yes, sir.
Is this the house in Lakeel that's not painted and it's off the road a bit on a bit of an angle? Is that the one I'm thinking of? I didn't recognize it just by the street address.
Yes, it is.
Um,
Has
I
to
wonder,
get on the same side of the road as gas station going towards the highway
Right.
overpass.
I wonder if for the council meeting, when this comes up at the council meeting, you could have a photograph of it for the benefit of council.
Absolutely can.
Sure. Deputy Warden?
Thank you so much. You know, I was up, Miss Francis got me up to look at some furniture that she had, and she wanted to get rid of the place a few weeks ago. And she had mentioned a while ago that she had wanted to be on this committee. That truly is a wonderful house. It's still as original as it can possibly be on the inside. And they put a metal roof on it years ago just to save it, you know, so they wouldn't have to revisit it. And well, I'd be all for that house getting recognized. It certainly is sort of one of the main houses out there for many years. So I'm all for it. Thank you.
Any further, if it's the house I'm thinking of, it's one of the houses in the books called Seasoned Timbers that the Heritage Trust put out about 40 years ago.
I believe so, yeah. The old Eason house is very,
Yeah.
very recognizable.
Any other discussion?
No. Question?
I don't see any, so I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Next is a recommendation report, canoe kayak rentals at Jubilee Park, Bridgetown. Ms. Ryan, are you going to speak to this? Are you there?
Yes. Yes, I am here.
Oh, there you are. Yeah.
Thank you. I was unmuted. Yes, when we came to Bridgetown, we inherited some kayaks out of Jubilee Park, and we've continued a rental rate at the park, and then for that, and then we've added a canoe to that list, and we've added a couple stand-up paddle boards. In Jubilee Park, because of the river, it's very conducive to what I would call easy kayaking, depending on the tides, but for the most part, and that kind of thing. It's very popular. In 2017, we offered it free. Council offered it free, and our numbers increased, practically doubled for usage. And what we're recommending is that we offer it, discontinue the actual rental fees and offer it as a service for the county folks and visitors. And it's not unlike what other areas do in Windsor, West Hants region, Kings County, Middleton, and Digby. They do offer their services free. And so what we're asking is for council's consideration of doing this. We will still maintain all the registrations that you have to do. You have to sign a waiver form. You have to give us assurances, you know, that you're going to bring the kayak back. So you leave something with us, but we've never had any issues the 6 years that we've been doing it. So we're asking council's consideration of that. It is approximately $300 in revenues that you do receive. It fluctuates a little bit up, a little down, but for the most part, averages around 300. So thank you.
Deputy Warden, would you like to make the motion?
Sure. The recommendation for council to approve the discontinuation of rental rates for the use of the kayaks, canoe, and paddle boards located in Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee Park.
Is there a seconder for that?
Deputy Warden, would you add Bridgetown at the end of your motion, please?
At Jubilee Park in Bridgetown.
Thank you.
Councillor Hudson seconds. Mr. Dick, are you, there you are.
Yes.
The fact that we're getting $300 less in revenue than we anticipated, is not going to be a problem.
Not at all.
Okay. Councillor Connell?
Do we have a summer student that is there at the park all summer, or how does that work?
We, if I may.
Yeah, Ms. Ryan, yes.
Yes, we do have a summer student, a recreation intern person, and they along with Nancy Chisholm, who works with us here in recreation, they tag team that project in terms of timing on weekends and what have you. So that's one of the advantages of our recreation intern. And we do boating education and videos and all those other things as well to complement it.
Yes, Councillor Connell?
So is that student, is that her job, summer job, is to be at that park? That's what I'm asking. Or is she shared around in different areas of the county? Is she up at the hub? You know, are we putting a summer student at the park?
No.
Go ahead, Ms. Ryan.
Yes. No, what we do is that person does all kinds of other responsibilities, and that's just one of them. It's not that, actually, it's not that, I won't say it's not that popular, it is, but what happens is that it disperses. Sometimes you'll get a reservation in the morning and early evening, and so we balance off the schedules and what have you. But yes, no, that person will be working not only in Bridgetown, but in other areas as well, as we need them throughout the COVID year.
Anybody else? Councillor Redden?
Yeah, through you, Warden, to staff. I was looking at the numbers. It doesn't seem like we have a lot of people using it, which I think is fine. But I was curious about what we do for promotion of this rec facility specifically, but also in general, our similar facilities.
Ms. Ryan, can you respond to that?
Yes, we do as much promotion with Queen Elizabeth Jubilee Park as we can, as with all our other parks. We've just initiated a project with postcards, so we're going to try to promote all our parks, all 13. And we have added a new postcard for Upper Clements Picnic Parks when that opens. But we're going to do some general promotion on our Facebook and website to encourage people to use the park and the rentals and that kind of thing. We also know too that when you look at the entire county, Middleton offers that as a service for kayaking, and then we have one in Bridgetown. It kind of balances off the county quite well in terms of giving experiential opportunities on the river. So you see that's a nice balance. So I hope that answers the question. But yes, we could always do more promotion, and we are doing the best that we can at this time. But we do know that in 2017, people knew about it because when it was offered free, they did use it. So double.
Councillor LeBlanc?
Yes, what I was wondering, is it the only place we would be able to rent these canoes or kayaks or paddle boats? Boards?
Ms. Ryan, can you respond to that?
It's yes, for right now, what we do is we offer it because we have a boathouse there and that we offer it in and out that we can secure them. If at some point in time down the road, you wanted us to offer rentals, not rentals, boat rentals at Raven Haven, we could do that as well. But that's that would be another, council would have to consider that.
Okay, before both things were together, whereas now I see them separated. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Longmire, did you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to ask if, is it sign up on site or can you sign up in advance on a living calendar as such?
Ms. Ryan, can you respond to that?
Okay. We don't have a living calendar at this point in time. What happens is that you call our office, you make a reservation, we fit you in, and we have a staff person meet you on site. And there's limitations to that, I mean, in terms of staffing and what have you, but we try to accommodate just about everyone. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Is your hand up, Deputy Warden?
Well, it could be, and it will be. Thank you. So what I do wonder about is, I know that the revenue you're saying is not very much. It's only about $300 a year, and I take it that would be our profit at the end of it. It's not much, but we're still running a staff person to look after these, clean them and wipe them from what the report does. So we're still going to incur some expense. And I do worry about what happens when these kayaks, paddle boards, canoes, and the rest of it are aged out. Is this just going to come back to be another expense from the municipality to have to replace them?
Mm-hmm.
And the times are booked, and we have to do quite a lot of them. And why are we doing this? Why would we be doing this just in Bridgetown and not at Raven Haven? Right? You know, you said, well, that would be another decision possibly to come back to county.
Well,
so that would be my question.
Yeah. If I don't know if that is really a staff response, but if you have some comments, Ms. Ryan, go ahead.
well, we have a lot of equipment within our recreation office, and we maintain it, we fix it. There is a minor cost to that, not a huge one. Those kayaks right now are in really good shape. I don't see that there being any major issues for costs. We have a small budget for that as well, and we manage that over the years, and so that it's and we do take we take a look at our fleet, and if there's something wrong with one, we take it out of service. So, but we manage that quite well. But the kayaks, they're in really good shape. They'll be around for a while.
Okay, thank you.
Before I come back to you, Councillor LeBlanc, maybe I'll just see if there's someone else who hasn't spoken yet. And that what I don't see. So Councillor LeBlanc, go ahead.
Well, I have two things. One being that the first question is, it's already in the budget. in the recreation budget, the amount of money that for repairs for these canoes, kayaks, etc., correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the second thing is, instead of coming back to committee of the whole or council, if we added, would it be appropriate to add Raven Haven here at the same time in case something down the lines, because it's summertime, they need that opened up at Raven Haven and it'll take a month to get back to it. That's what I'm wondering with a simple addition.
I'm not, I have to confess, I'm not certain what the status is at Raven Haven. Ms.
I
Ryan,
don't know
perhaps
either.
you could clarify that?
Yes, we are, we just interviewed yesterday for two people that will be park attendants, and we will open Raven Haven as a day use park from 10 until 6 p.m. So within those timelines, and if it works out, and assuming, you know, everyone is okay with that, then we could possibly offer a service out there within those timelines, and manage it very well, I think. So yes, so if you wanted to add Raven Haven into that mix, then that would be fine.
Do we offer canoes or kayaks at Raven Haven at the moment?
We always used to when we were a full functional site as a day and overnight site. We used to have paddle. We don't have any paddle boards there, but we have kayaks, paddle boats, and canoes. So we have those three types, and then they've always been very popular, but we've actually rented those at the time. But during COVID last year, we just went down to bare minimum service. So there was no canteen, no overnight, no rentals. So we could add the sign out feature. We had a lot of inquiries last year about that.
So you say, well, you rented them out. You mean you charged so much a ride? Is that what you was, so much an hour?
We charged the same amount of money that we did in Bridgetown, which was $8 an hour. Yes.
And so I think the question that perhaps Councilor LeBlanc is asking is whether or not we could do the same thing at Raven Haven if we do in fact offer kayak and canoes as we're doing at Jubilee Park.
We could if my supervisor and the CEO were to agree with that, yes.
I think probably, as I understand the opening up of the pandemic, this is something that Councilor LeBlanc or somebody else could bring back at the next committee of the whole in July to have a better report on it, if that's the wish of council. Is that fair enough? Are there any other comments on the Ms. Councilor LeBlanc, you have another comment?
Well, on your comment, the reason behind this was because if it opens up, if they do whatever they do, 10 to 6, whatever, if the motion is already in there, adding that to this motion, then they can go forward with renting them, or, you know, free rentals of these things without coming back to council in July, because that was just having it out there. So if it opens, then they can do it immediately instead of waiting a whole month coming back. That was my point. Thank you. I don't know if the CAO has any comment on that or not.
Certainly, I can respond to that, Councillor. I would certainly support that decision. If we're going to provide free services in one part of the community, we should provide that same level of service in other places. So maybe what I would suggest is you just change the motion to include Raven Haven, should that service be provided.
I'll do that.
So Councilor LeBlanc, would you like to make an amendment to the motion to add Raven Haven?
Yes.
Is there a seconder to that motion? Councilor Longmire? So Madam Clerk, let's just make sure we have the amendment clear. I'm looking at the motion on the floor. And you already added the word Bridgetown, and I guess if we just add the words, and also at Raven Haven?
Correct.
Would that satisfy, Councilor LeBlanc, would that satisfy your amendment?
Yes.
Okay, discussion, Councillor Barto. You're muted, Councillor Barto.
Is that better?
Yeah.
I just picked up one thing the CAO mentioned, and it said, should the service be provided? We don't want to make a motion that's going to automatically commit us to do that until the circumstances are warranted.
As
But
I
if
read
they-
sorry.
No, if the service is provided, then it would be treated the same as Jubilee Park.
I believe the way the motion is worded that that's implicit because all we're doing is we're discontinuing the rental fee. So I don't think it mandates that we have to actually do anything.
Okay, I just want to make sure it wasn't taking us down a road that
No,
we
I don't
have to
think
make another
so.
motion.
Yeah. Councillor Connell?
Where you can call into the office and schedule kayaks and canoes and stuff. Does that mean that our staff has to go out after hours to satisfy these requests? Because at Ravenhaven, if we're open from point A to point B, I definitely wouldn't want to see us pay attendants to have to stay because somebody wants to go kayaking after those hours.
Ms. Ryan, what are the hours at Ravenhaven?
We're establishing the hours this year from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So if anybody wants to rent them, they would have to rent them within those timeframes and they'd have to be back by 6 p.m. And when we rented them before, when we had open, everyone was always back. We never had anyone that came back later than that time frame. So it always worked out really well.
Any other comments on the amendment to the motion? I don't see any, so I'll call for a vote on the amendment to the motion, which is to add Ravenhaven. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Is there any further discussion on the motion as amended? I don't see any, so I will call for a vote on the motion as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. The next is a recommendation report regarding tree line management, Bridgetown Land Use Bylaw Amendment application. I'm just going to turn it up here. Okay, Mr. Dunphy, are you, well, perhaps there is a long recommendation.
I'll put it on the
Yeah.
table.
Okay, put it on the table, sure, thank you.
The recommendation that Committee of the Whole recommend to Municipal Council to consider the tree line project management limited application. ACPS file number 66520-35-2021 LUB-001 to amend the Bridgetown Land Use Bylaw zoning map to rezone 431 Granville Street, PID 05173356 from the residential light density R1 zone to the highway commercial C2 zone to permit the development of a construction, equipment, and trailer sales facility, to adopt a public participation process involving appropriate public notifications via newspaper ads and the referral of the application to the Bridgetown Area Advisory Committee, BAAC, and the Annapolis County Planning Advisory Committee, PAC, for their review and recommendation after holding a public meetings in the community.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Hudson seconds it. Discussion, Councillor Connell?
Could we have a description roughly where that property is on number one? Is it the property across from the our new park, our new track and field and stuff? Is it that property, or where is the property on number one? I mean,
Mr. Dunphy, where's Mr. Dunphy? There you are.
Councillor Collin, you're exactly right. It's the place where the car wash is, directly across from the old high school, across from the sports hub.
And so, Mr. Dunphy, is it property to the right or the property to the left of the car wash?
It is the property to the west. It is a vacant lot now owned by the same person.
I see that it's zoned residential light density. You didn't set out in your report what that includes. Can you give us just a rough summary of what it's currently zoned as?
Single unit residential development is its basic criteria. There was a house on it, I understand, maybe about 20, 30 more years ago, and it's never been put back there.
Any other questions or comments with respect to the motion on the floor? I'm looking. Mr. Dunphy, I have a few more questions. It's for construction. He wants to be development of a construction equipment and trailer sales facility. What type of construction equipment are we talking about?
Mostly small things, like maybe a small excavator and small pieces of equipment like that. That's his usual, that the person who wants to rent there, he will be renting from the person who owns the property and owns the business. So he has an office in the main brick building, and he'll want to do his rental facilities and stuff like that, which includes small trailers and small excavating equipment. So what you will see there effectively is what's been there before, which is a couple of trailers that you pull along behind your pickup truck or such, and maybe a small excavator and such like that.
So it wouldn't be RV trailers?
No.
And is there any way that if we rezone it to C2, would there be any way to prevent somebody changing what they're marketing there from what you've described to large excavator equipment or RV trailers?
If you look on page 23 of the package, that identifies if the rezoning is successful and it's changed to the highway commercial zone, any and all of those permitted uses would be permitted on that lot.
Right. So what's the answer to my question?
I believe the answer is going to be, when you look at it, heavy equipment maintenance and storage is one of the businesses or one of the things that are allowed there. You're allowed various things like equipment and machinery for business. So there's a broad range of things would be permitted as of right with the rezoning. Mm-hmm. And I would add, Warden, and exactly in these types of scenarios, when you have a broad list of uses in a permitted zone and you rezone to that, you allow all of those uses.
You indicate in your report that highway commercial lotions, there are two specific cases of large highway commercial uses located in residential areas. What are those?
I think what we're talking about, that is the sections right out of the Bridgetown Municipal Plan. And one is probably talking about the hotel, and the other one is talking about this building itself, because as a car wash and various that had been in there.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions with respect to the motion on the floor? Deputy Warden Gunn?
Thank you very much. Through you, Warden. So he's talking about building, and there'll be a new building with this as well? If this goes through?
Yeah, Mr. Dunphy, would you like to respond?
No, in actuality, it says there that he has to consolidate his two lots together, because what it talks about where his business is right now located in the brick building, he's only using that as a display court. To do this, he would have to consolidate both properties together. So no, there would be no new buildings as part.
Deputy Warden, a second question.
So how will this add to our tax base in Bridgetown, or is it just business wise? Is it just This is just a business. It's not going to really add to our tax base by changing this to C2.
That's really not my kind of expertise. The reason why I say that is what I included in your report is in the evaluative criteria. One of the things you look at is the impacts, the uses surrounding and such like that. Competition, taxes, stuff like this is not something I usually look for. As a general answer, what I can tell you there is that the property will probably be rezoned if it's rezoned from residential to commercial. Chances are likely the piece of land will go from a residential zoning or a residential assessment to a commercial assessment. In the bigger scheme of things, I don't believe you're going to see a huge amount of impact because there will be no other building. It will be simply a display court.
Thank you.
Councillor Barto?
So essentially, all this is doing is enlarging the area for the existing operation. It's not adding a new zone or anything. It's just widening the current one where the car wash is to the west. Approximately, I'm not sure the distance of the size of that lot.
Mr. Dunphy, can you respond to that?
And Councillor, yes, that's exactly right. He would be just consolidating to make his existing business property larger. And therefore he would be asking to store for display only on that property.
Councillor Hudson?
Yes, in relation to what Councillor Bardo said, I think the property would be less than 200 feet wide on the Granville Street road. Anyway, for my clarification, the recommendation says to permit the development of a construction equipment and trailer sales facility. So is it going to be a sales facility or a rental location?
Mr. Dunphy?
Motion says sales.
Yep.
Mr. Dunphy?
Yes. These are excellent questions, which is one of the reasons why we always ask the applicant to come in front. It could sell a trailer if it wanted to, a small trailer. It could rent them. Basically what it is when we look at the provisions, sales and rental are the same sort of a thing.
Yeah. Do you have a follow-up, Councillor Hudson?
No.
Okay. Mr. Dunphy, I have another question. If it's rezoned to C2, then the owner of the lot can do whatever is allowed under the C2 guidelines, correct?
Yes, sir.
So he might say right now that he's planning to do small trailers and no RVs, but once it's rezoned and he wanted to sell RV equipment, he could without coming back to council, right?
That is correct.
And the only way that we could control what goes on the property is through a development agreement. Is that right?
If you want a detailed level of control of exactly what types of uses, the answer is yes, but such policy doesn't exist, which means you'd be going back and amending the municipal plan to create that policy first.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, was whether under the current legislation, a development agreement would be possible with respect to that site as we go through the rest of the planning process. And the answer is no. We'd have to amend the plan.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. Any other questions? I don't see any, so I will call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Next is a recommendation regarding the Annapolis County Accessibility Action Plan and timeline. There's a recommendation that has been circulated. Deputy Warden, would you like to put the motion on the table?
Motion to 210316.20 CAO Development Action Plan and timeline for April 22nd deadline, pursuant to the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole. Deputy Warden Gunn, that's me, moved. Seconded by.
No, that's Councillor Deputy Warden. I think that's, I could be wrong, but I think that's The
Oh, yeah,
reference.
you're right. You're right. Sorry.
I think
about
the
that.
recommendation's at the bottom of the page there.
Yep, there it is here. For Committee of the Whole to approve Annapolis County Accessibility Action Plan and timeline that is listed in the chart in this report for the creation of the Annapolis County Accessibility Plan that is due to the province by April 1st, 22nd.
And
By
in fact-
April 2022.
In fact, that should be for committee of the whole to recommend to council, correct? Where's the clerk?
That's, yeah, that's not what's written.
Uh,
To recommend.
It's Ms. Young. Oh, there she is. You've moved around on my screen, Ms. Young. Sorry. So we've made that change to the motion. Then. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor LeBlanc seconds. Discussion? Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. I'm very happy that we are moving ahead with this, and I applaud the detail of the timetable. At one and the same time, it's specific, but we have the time to adjust as necessary. And one who would be directly affected by this plan, I look forward to our county effort being prepared in good faith and submitted according to the provincial timeline. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Next is the tax exemption policy amendment. Let me just pull that up here. That's page 31. 31. Excuse me. There is a recommendation. So Deputy Warden, would you like to read the recommendation?
The recommendation that 7-day notice be given for municipal council to amend AM-1.4.12 tax exemption and reduction policy by deleting the following property in District 6. You want me to read the property?
I think you should, yeah.
HMC SCFB Cornwallis Military Historical Association, Lot 97-2, Building 413 Museum, 726 Broadway Avenue, Cornwallis Park, property number 607-041-403. And I don't know, and there's another little number on the end that says 3005731.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Hudson seconds. Discussion? Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. The person who bought this former church, former museum, has a lot of plans to develop it with the aim of fostering local talents and skills, making them available to, of course, the wider community, and when we get back to that system, to tour buses that pass through our area with great frequency during the tourism season. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Sheridan?
Nothing on the recommendation. There's just an error on page 39 in District 9. It's showing the Keith Lodge as belonging to District 9.
Yeah, but we're not here.
It's just in the information package.
Oh, yeah. You're saying that's in a different district?
Yeah, that's in, I believe, Councillor Gunn's district, I believe.
Yeah, it would be.
And further to that, if I may, they have the Middleton and District Lions Club. I think they've got the two mixed up. That's showing up in the District 8. So I think maybe they just got flipped. I noticed that as well.
Yes.
Let's see.
Just
That's
for reference.
Ms. Campbell, where's Ms. Campbell? Is she here? There you are. Can you just take note of those?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Bartow?
Just one other correction while we're on that list is when it says the 74th Crusaders Touring Club, it says in Lakeele, it's actually in Moshel.
What district are we in here?
That's District 4, top item on page 37.
Okay. Thank you. Well, you can tell the councillors read all this stuff. Good to know. Ms. Campbell, would you like to respond?
I'm not sure I can make a change of Lakeele to Moshel. I would be taking what's ever in property online.
Well,
Okay. Yeah,
its location is in Moshel, so I'm not sure what property online is telling you, but it's not in Lakeele.
well, we'll leave that to Ms. Campbell.
We can
to
discuss
do
that later.
administratively
Yeah.
what she feels is appropriate, I think. Councillor Hudson.
Yeah, so I'll just maybe mention, this may be an omission. The Dalhousie Community Hall is not listed under 7. It may just be an omission.
Ms. Campbell, you're taking a note of that, and I'm sure you can.
I don't recall them being in previously. Were they in previously? I'm just wondering whether this is an organization that hasn't made application, or is this?
Well, perhaps, Ms. Campbell, maybe you and Councillor Hudson can do that offline and
Sure
figure out
thing.
what the list should be. Anybody else? There's a motion on the floor with respect to this particular property in Cornwallis. Any other discussion with respect to the motion on the floor? I don't see any, so I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Next is a recommendation regarding the Bridgetown School Trust, which is
If I can provide alternate wording on that, I would appreciate that.
sorry, what was that?
I would like to provide alternate wording on this motion.
Okay, let me just pull it up first, if you could. It's on page 42, so I can follow along with you. Wait now.
43.
43. Okay, what I have it. What change would you like to make, Ms. Young?
It just is easier to follow if I invert it as follows. To recommend that municipal council approve a total payout of $8,215 from the school trust bank account to 1 Bridgetown Regional Community School for disbursement of student prizes on graduation night of $5,415, $4,495 and $920 for programs as per fund directives, and 2, $2,800 to be available to disperse to educational institutions upon request of scholarship award recipients. It just puts the total amount at the beginning of the motion rather than capturing it at the end.
Yeah, I see. It's a clearer directive to council that when it reads that way. I agree with you. I don't think we need to have the motion read again. I assume that it's moved by Deputy Warden as set out by the clerk. Councillor LeBlanc seconds. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Next is the renewal of animal control for the town of Annapolis Royal. Page 46. And there is a recommendation here, Deputy Warden.
Recommendation is that Committee of the Whole recommend to Municipal Council to authorize the Warden and Municipal Clerk to sign a 5-year agreement for animal control with the town of Annapolis Royal, starting July 1st, 2021, ending July 1st, 2026.
Is there a seconder for the motion?
The motion is actually ending March 31st, 2026.
Is that not what I said? Oh,
You may have said July, but it's March.
sorry. Can I get a correction here? May I make a correction before we get into this?
Sure.
This says it's starting July 1st, 2021 and ending, oh, yeah, March 1st, 2026. Okay. No, that's yeah, 26. Okay, 5 years, yeah.
Yeah.
What was your clarification, Madam Clerk?
I'm just making sure the dates are stated as
Okay.
there.
2026.
5 years,
2020.
Deputy Warden, because it didn't start on April, but it will be that same 5-year term as if it started on April 1st.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Seconder to the motion? Councillor Connell seconds. Discussion? Councillor LeBlanc?
Thank you. Well, I see that it's been changed from 3 years and the reasoning is there to 5 years. But my question is there an increase in the amount in monies provided as we go down the line, or do we stay at the same amount for 5 years, no matter what the number is, or do we go by animal pickup? I'm sure Cheryl can answer all those questions.
I think the report comes from Ms. Campbell, does it not?
Oh, yes, or Cheryl.
Is there a staff member that would like to respond to Councillor LeBlanc's inquiry?
I would designate Cheryl if you're looking at me.
I'm looking for her. Is she here?
Yes.
She's on the next page. There, I found you.
There's too many of us.
Oh, is she there? Oh, there she is.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So
Did you hear Councillor LeBlanc's question?
I did. The amount stays the same from year to year. There's no big change, basically because we have enough history that we know that there is not a huge requirement for us to provide the pickup of dogs in the town of Annapolis Royal. If we had taken on a larger municipality that maybe there was a lot more work, we probably would look at whether there was an increase at a certain point. But because of the history, we've decided to keep the numbers the same as they've always been.
So, if I may, so you review that
A
every
follow-up,
year?
yes. A follow-up, Ms. Councillor LeBlanc, yes.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so we review that at the end of every year is what you're saying?
Yes.
Ms. Mason?
Yes, at the end of every year, we know how many animals we have picked up from the town.
I think that Councillor LeBlanc is talking about the fee, not the number of animals.
Well, yeah, and I'm going, yeah.
Councillor, Ms.
It
Mason?
doesn't change.
Well, if I could jump in, that's one of the questions I had. Two things. First of all, I guess the number of requirements for us to pick up a dog really doesn't matter because we're being paid on a per dog basis, per pickup basis, correct? So if we have a lot of work to do, we're going to be charging more money. My thought was that $50 to respond to an on-site visit to pick up the animal, obtain information and take pictures seems pretty low to me for a staff person to go out and do all that. And I thought the $50 was low. The other thought that I had was that we're fixing it for 5 years, and I would have thought that maybe it would increase. You know, it's a 5-year contract, so I thought it might increase year after year a little bit just to keep up with inflation. Can you respond to those comments?
Then we've never considered that in the past. We certainly could. I would certainly also have to have a conversation with the town of Annapolis Royal, because I also have to mirror some of the information that is in their bylaw.
What's that? What's the information in their bylaw that you have to mirror?
That we are charging the fees for the pickup of the animals and to return them to the owners. So I I would certainly have to have a conversation with the town just to let them know that we may want to adjust those numbers. And that's, I don't think that's a problem. I think that's reasonable.
Any other comments from the council? I don't see any, so I'll call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Recommendation report, Clementsport Legion Branch 122.
Gordon, you will have to have discussion on this item before a motion is made because you have to pick one of those options.
All right, let me just pull it up here. Oh, this is the one about the land purchase, yeah. So, council, you have the recommendation with respect to the land that we own that the Clementsport Legion Branch is interested in purchasing, and you have on page 51 a number of options.
Mr. Warden, if I may interject, there is a staff recommendation. There is a recommendation that the property not be sold.
Right, that's right. Yes. I did see that. Where is that?
Right at the bottom of page 50.
Right, I do. In fact, I have it underlined. Look at that.
Yeah.
So it says there is a staff recommendation.
Want me to read that
So
out?
since there is a staff recommendation, I think I will put it on the table for discussion, and it can be voted up or down depending on the other options. So Deputy Warden,
Okay.
would
The
you like
staff
to just,
recommendation.
just your own wording, your recommendation to the council, and it's the bottom of page 50.
That's right. As part of an initial consultation, the directors of finance, municipal operations, along with the manager of recreation, were asked for their opinion and recommendation. It is the opinion of staff that the county-owned property 281 Clementsport Road, PD number 05102-785, due to its intrinsic value, should not be sold.
And could we just change that to it's a recommendation to council?
All right.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Redden seconds it. So discussion with respect to the motion and the 5 options. Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. Could I just hear the motion, please?
I think I do, if I could interrupt the Deputy Warden, I think essentially, if you look at the bottom of page 50, it's that it is the Committee of the Whole recommends the council that the county-owned property 281 Clementsport Road, PID number 05102-785, due to its intrinsic value, should not be sold. I think that's the motion that the Deputy Warden, the thrust of it.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that the keeper of motions, the clerk, has that wording.
Madam Clerk, is that? Thank you. Discussion? Councillor Redden?
Yeah, so in reading through this, there was some recommendation in the package and consideration about future use of the property and maybe a potential park site, down the road. And it occurred to me that there's not really a plan for our 10, 15, 20 years sort of recreation plan and new parks and stuff like that. And that really whether to keep or get rid of this property boiled down to me was it would be much harder to replace in the future if we tried to sell it now and say buy something equivalent in 10 years. So I felt we should we're best to hold on to this property. It does have some value as a park. I walked part of it on the weekend, and frankly, I wouldn't want to build anything there. A lot of it's a floodplain, and then the slope in the back is quite steep. So it for the small amount of money, I think we would get to it, especially in a direct sale. I don't see a benefit to the county in that sense. It certainly doesn't really cost us anything to hold on to it for 5 or 10 years. for potential future use of something. And probably going to start sounding like a broken record over the next few months about us not having a plan for things. And to me, any action without a plan is a bad action. So that's all I have to say there.
I'm looking around, Deputy Warden.
Thank you. Well, I've looked at this piece of property and I've talked to a few people about it and what their plan was. Apparently, the Legion thinks, as it says in this report, that the two lots combined will be more saleable. Well, that's agreeable, but the Legion, if they're trying to raise funds, I see all kinds of options for them to get rid of that property. First, a young man just bought the property on Guinea Road, and I'm sure that, someone there in that direction would love to have that lovely piece of woodland up and back of them. And if the Legion's looking to raise funds, my God, get somebody in there and cut it off. In 10 years, they'll have another shot of money to come into them. Or the county could buy it and put it in our park. So God knows where we get the money from, but another year may follow along that we could swing that. We could possibly buy it. But it's not a huge amount of money to buy that 10.9 acres. I can't imagine the value of it. Really, the land isn't worth as much as what the timber is on it. And I'm not for selling the old dam site down there. I mean, we got to think a generation ahead here. 20 years down the line, we might need that for a park. We don't know what's going to happen. I'm not a big fan of getting rid of any county land, especially when it's there for recreation.
On a point of order, please.
Yes, Councilor Morrison.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'm confused. We're supposedly talking a motion not to sell, but in the staff report, there are options for consideration. Does that mean that those options could be amendments to the main? How do we deal with the options throughout our discussion?
I would suggest that you indicate that you would prefer one of the other options and give your reason therefore.
And that as an amendment to the motion.
Well, you can do it as an amendment to the motion, or I think you could just raise it as a discussion. That's your option.
It's very hard to amend the motion because the motion is so simple and clear that almost anything of an amendment moves away from the intent of the motion, but we'll see.
Well, I would suggest then what you do is you argue for one of the other options and say that you'll be voting against the motion. Go ahead if you'd like to. No?
Mr. Warden, if
okay.
I may, that's
Yeah.
exactly what we were trying to do here. We were trying to provide council with some options should they not have selected the staff recommendation. So we wanted to allow enough opportunities for council, should they not agree with staff's recommendation to keep the property, that there was options available should you decide to choose another option.
Thank you. Councilor Sheridan?
So regarding the piece of property that they have no access to, so they still would have no access to it. Is there some way that we can grant them some type of right of way or so they can have access to that property?
I
like-
don't know. I don't know the answer to that at the moment. I see Mr. Dunphy has his hand up. Perhaps Mr. Dunphy, can you respond to that?
I can try. The point about that property is that access is limited completely because there is no bridge across the rivers to get to the property. So providing an access to them would still lead to the point that who's going to put in a bridge?
Okay.
And that's an expensive proposition.
Understand. Thank you.
Any other comments? I will say I agree with the comments of Councillor Redden and Councillor Gunn, Deputy Warden Gunn, that this property is a property that should be land banked and kept for a while, and I'll be voting in favor of the motion. Councillor Connell?
Whose district is it in?
I beg your pardon?
Whose district is it in?
I don't know for certain. Councillor Morrison, is it in yours? Okay, that's all you were wanting to know, Councillor Connell? Okay. Councillor Barto?
Muted.
Am I unmuted now? Okay.
You're good.
Part of their concern for wanting to buy this was to have access to their landlocked land, but as mentioned before, without a bridge, it's still the same way. I don't see how selling this portion of property to the Legion would be any benefit to them other than increasing their land area. So I will be voting for the motion to not sell at this point. I think that it'd be a little short-sighted to liquidate it at this point in time. So I would be in favor of staff's recommendation.
Thank you. Other comments? Councillor Prout?
I'll also be voting in favor of the staff option. I worked for a gentleman for a number of years. One of his sayings he often repeated was, referring to land, they're not making any more of it. And I think we should hang on to this, and who knows, in the future, we may be able to make good use of it for some sort of recreation. It's been used for that in the past, so I'll be voting in favor of the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. We all know the value of the Legion to a community, and I am sure that will continue. I'm a great fan of one of Councillor Redden's remarks that we ought to have a plan, and I've been agitating for many years for the county to have a strategic plan. We do not now have a strategic plan, and when we get to develop it, as I hope we will do in the near future, then of course land use, parks, recreations, etc., should be an integral part of that plan. I know the Legion will be disappointed, but acting in the best interests of the county, as I am bound to do by my oath of office, after reading, considering, and listening, I will be voting for the motion.
Thank you. Any other comments? I don't see any, so I will call for the motion, vote on the motion. And the motion is to not sell the property. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. I just checked my watch. I think we'll keep going. Next is the Community Development May report from Mr. Dunphy. That's page 57. Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Dunphy with respect to his report? Councillor Redden. Councillor Redden? Yeah.
Yes, not so much for Mr. Dunphy. I see he's discussing, brings up the way of grant applications there. By policy, we were supposed to have done these in May. It's now June. And I know these organizations are eager to move on with their projects. And Mr. Dunphy here has suggested a special council meeting, and I would like to get that scheduled as soon as possible.
Mr. Dick, you heard Councillor Redden's comments, and I'm sure you'll take that under consideration.
If I may, Mr. Warden, we're partway through that process. We're just summarizing where we stand in terms of the total grant allocation the council approved. I've got probably, I'm going to guess, somewhere between 35 and 40 applications that we have we'll be in the process of making recommendations on. So I suspect that we'll be having a special meeting I would think probably sometime in the next couple of 3 weeks. Format might be a little bit different than what it was in the past. I understand in the past it was like an 8-hour meeting. I don't think that looking through these requests, it warrants an 8-hour meeting. So we'll provide a different format with one overall report with a recommendation to provide the funding as we would recommend.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Warden, you need a motion? You forgot the
is-
motion.
A motion to receive, is that the type of motion we're
Correct.
looking for?
Yep.
See the clerk,
So there's no action.
so I thought there'd be a discussion in case there's a further motion arising out of the
No, we can do
the
that after.
report. Sorry?
You shouldn't be discussing putting it on the table first.
All right, Deputy Warden, would you like
Move
to
to
move
receive.
that, move to receive? Second. Councillor LeBlanc seconds. Further discussion on the report, Councillor Connell.
Under recreation, Bridgetown Regional Outdoor Sports Hub. I thought there was a committee raising money for that electronic sign. I didn't realize the county was trying to find grant funding for it too.
Yeah,
So I
well,
just, I didn't understand why we were looking for grants for the sign when there's a group of citizens in Bridgetown doing that.
Who can respond to Councillor Connell's question? Is there
Deborah.
somebody on staff that can respond? Ms.
Deborah has her
Ryan?
hand.
Ms. Ryan, did I see your hand up?
Yes, yes, you do. Yes, what we did is back with CAO Louis Catino, we discussed the funding application regarding Memorial Park. So we submitted a funding application to the province that included pieces of the Memorial Park, which was the benches, the accessibility options, the display signs, which are the 3 interpretive, and the learning circle and the electronic sign. And we were actually turned down for the RFD. If we go forward in a new application process, they will not fund electronic sign. So we would just submit a funding application just for the components of Memorial Park in terms of that project. So that's kind of where we're at in regards to that project. The province has indicated they have never received applications for electronic signs. So we were one of the first ones, and they decided that they don't fund those kinds of signs. So we just, so that's fine. But yes, we were assisting them with the project because we're going to own the sign. So yes, we were part and parcel of it. But it was more than that.
Councillor Connell, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, and I personally feel that the committee's doing their job. So I think we have lots of other things to put in for funds from other government agencies. I think we should leave electronic sign alone and let the committee do their job and raise the money like we asked them to.
Okay. Any other comments with respect to this report, the community development report? Councillor Prout, I'll go to you.
Thank you. On the top of page 58, I was just curious, could I get some more information? It was item number 9 in the first part, the ombudsman's office, rather.
Yeah.
About the property on Daniels Road in Mount Hanley.
Is there somebody on staff that can give us a little more detail on that for Councillor Prout?
Yes, I can take that on, Mr. Warden. I received a call from the ombudsman, I don't know, maybe a couple of 3 or 4 weeks ago with respect to this particular property. Staff has provided me responses to the numerous conversations that we have had with the landowner, and I have forwarded all those comments back to the ombudsman, and I'm waiting for a response from them.
Okay, thank you. I didn't tweak anything in my memory bank, so I was curious. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Sheridan.
So under recreation, in regards to the Cotw playground parking lot, is there an update on where we sit with that?
What was that again?
The
Which part?
Cotw playground parking lot next to the playground in Cotw?
Yeah.
It's been in the works for quite some time to purchase the parking lot.
Okay, can somebody on staff give us more detail about where we stand with respect to the Cotw playground parking lot?
Yes.
Who's the-
Yes, I
I
can
hear-
give the
Oh,
update.
Ms. Reiner, yes, go ahead.
We'll have a request, we'll have a recommendation report in front of council in July in regards to that project. And yes, the developers have agreed to a price and have agreed to give us a parcel of property adjacent to our existing land. So we'll put that in a recommendation report and we'll bring it along in July for the committee of the whole.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else with respect to the community development report? Deputy Warden.
Thank you. So when it comes to the grants for the halls, and we're going to go over this. We were talked about this last year, that we have year after year, the same people get the grants, the same halls seem to get the grants. Maybe they're the only ones that just keep putting in for them. But we were going to look at equity in this grant distribution, because, you know, if I look at the list that we have in there, yes, there are some in District 8, and yes, there are some. But if we were to go back through the years of who's getting the grants, we'd see that more often than not, there's a lot of halls in the municipality that don't get grants. And now whether they don't feel they need them or what, but there's certainly a lot of halls that seem to get them year in, year out. So I thought last year, because I brought this up for several years, we were going to look at maybe the equity of it and the proportioning out. I mean, some halls never apply for a grant. Maybe they do once every 5 or 10 years. Some halls do it yearly. As soon as there's $2,400 to be available from the county, they're in. And I've seen this go on year and year, and different organizations year in, year out. This group will get some money out of county, but not another group. So I thought we were just going to look at the equity before we started the equitable delivery of these funds before we just started giving them out. Thank you.
Mr. Dick, did I see your hand up?
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Warden. To the Deputy Warden, I've reviewed the policy, and we will be sitting down in the next few days, and we're going to start redrafting a new policy to make it clearer. And that's certainly one of the things that we've discussed at a staff level about the equity of who gets them. Do we set time limits on how often and how long people get grants? So we're hoping maybe to have a policy back to council in or the committee in July.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments with respect to this report? I don't see any, so I will ask for a vote on the motion to receive. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you for that. Next is the legislative, just a minute. One more I think we can do. Legislative Services Report, which is page 62.
Move to receive.
Move to receive by the Deputy Warden. Is there a second? Councilor Sheridan seconds. Okay, this is the Legislative Services Report. Are there any questions or comments with respect to this report? Councilor LeBlanc.
Thank you. Well, I don't have questions. I do have a comment. I'd like to say thank you to especially the IT group of all the work that they have to do all the time and try to bail us out of trouble when we're having issues with Zoom and everything else. So I'd like to say a big thank you to those people, actually to everybody in the county at the same time, but especially the IT people. I'm sure they shake their heads at us sometimes.
Thank you for that, Councilor LeBlanc. I second your comments. They were very much appreciate all the work they do for us. Councilor Cotw?
Yeah, I'd like to just make a comment that there's no current requests under the FOIPOP, and that's good to see that hopefully we are doing what we told the citizens, that we would try to keep them updated as much as we can, as long as it's not something that we have to do in camera. But we've been trying to keep our citizens well up to date on the issues of the county, and I think we're doing a good job at that.
Thank you. Any other comments with respect to the Legislative Services report?
Which includes the animal control.
Thank you. I don't see any, so I will call for a vote on the motion.
Thank you.
Sorry.
May I?
Yes. Sure.
I didn't realize until that the clerk said it includes the animal report. Now I have a problem with animals report because I don't know what to do. And I figured this would be a good time to bring it up. So last week in a rainy, windy night, I was driving home and thump, a cat ran underneath my wheels, ran right out in the rain and ran underneath my wheel. And I ran it over. And I got out, it was raining, and I picked that poor cat up, being one of God's creatures, and I dried it off, put it in a box, and brought it home. It was a pregnant cat that I hit. And I tried to bring it around. Anyway, it died overnight. So the next day, I took it back down the road to whence it came. And I stopped there, and I stopped some gentlemen, and I said, listen, do you know who owns this cat? I hit it last night. What's going on with it? Who owns it? They said, that's one of those cats probably from up the barn. Now, I start inquiring about the barn. Apparently we have a barn down the road here. The property's been sold. Somebody's filled it up full of feral female cats who are all pregnant, running around looking to eat. And I'm saying, what do we do about that? Whose responsibility is it for a barn full of cats that somebody's moved out of their place and left behind? And that's just the question, because I see cats come up here. And I'd like to report that instance and like to know what we do in that situation, because our bird population and everything else around here is going to take a kicking from a barn full of cats.
Would someone on staff be able to respond to that inquiry as to what we do in that situation, Ms. Campbell?
Perhaps I could start, and if this doesn't respond fully to the deputy warden's question, I could defer to Cheryl for more information. So under our bylaw, it's a complaint-driven bylaw. So if cats are located on a property owned by someone that's bothered, certainly there's power provided under the bylaw to pick up cats that are considered a nuisance by the property owner. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of mechanisms to deal with feral cats that are taken into custody. There are some circumstances where the SPCA will take feral cats, not frequently. They're usually totally booked up. We do, however, have a trap, neuter, and return program that provides for property owners who will take responsibility for the cats that are returned to have them fixed and returned to the location so that the population does not continue to grow. That is dependent totally on a person being willing to be responsible for their care after their return to the location.
May I follow
Yeah,
up?
follow up, Deputy Warden.
Yeah, thank you. And I don't want to drag this on too long because it's kind of out of the slate. So we don't have any bylaws where people have to take responsibility for their animals. So I got my house, maybe in a few years, I'll put it on the market. And I want to fill that barn up there full of cats. And when I move and I decide I don't want to take those cats with me, they're no longer my responsibility. I can move from my property and leave those cats behind and no longer have a responsibility for them. That's the way our bylaw sits at the moment.
Yes, Ms. Campbell, would you like to respond?
In essence, yes, But I would add to that, that there is also an organization that's responsible for animal welfare, and that's the SPCA. So in a circumstance where animals have been abandoned, there would be the option to reach out to the SPCA. They do have legal authority to levy fines and charges against people who do not care for animals that they own.
So just to clarify, Ms. Campbell, we, the county, don't have the ability to go on somebody's property to deal with the problem if it's identified by a neighbor. Is that right? That's right. Okay.
Thank you for the answer.
Other comments with respect to this report? Other comments with respect to this report? Seeing that, oh, Councillor Sheridan.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Cheryl Mason and her team. I've had a good response from a house that was recently taken down, had burnt, and they were complaining. Cheryl took a hold of that, and the house is now gone. And I've had some positive responses, and I want to pass them along to her and her team. Thank you very much for a job well done.
Thank you. Anything else? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote on the motion to receive. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you for that. Next is the financial services. And I think if we can do this, then I think we might take a 5-minute break.
Move to receive.
Move to receive by the Deputy Warden. Is there a second? Councillor Longmire seconds. So the the monthly report for financial matters is financial services is on page 66. Are there any questions or comments in that regard?
Yes, please.
Councillor LeBlanc.
Yes, thank you. I was looking at the first page, page 66, first paragraph, the Britex, we've received 3 tenders. So have we sold the property or not? Is there any information, any more information on that one?
Mr. Dick, can you respond to that?
Yes, the call for tender closed last week. We had, I can't recall if it was 6 or 7 responses. We've accepted an offer conditional on conditions, and we were hoping to have heard by yesterday, but the deadline is 4:30 today. So we expect to have an answer today from the proponent that won the tender. Should that not be successful, we'll end up going to the second respondent.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. Have I read correctly? We're getting double gas tax this year?
Either Mr. Dick or Ms. Ord, can you respond?
Yes, that's correct. We will get double.
Golly gee. In past few years, we've heard a lot from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities about this. And did I miss it in the media? I mean, did the federal government actually miss a moment here? Or were we just told out of the blue?
Can Ms. Ord, can you respond to the councillor's question?
I think there were some media about this program. I think there was something that came out. I'm not sure, but we did get an email stating that we will get that in June.
Thank you.
Councillor Hudson. You're muted, Councillor Hudson.
Yes, just in relation to Councillor Morrison's comment, I recall at our budget meetings, this extra payment of gas tax was brought up at that meeting, just
Yeah.
for information.
Thank you. Deputy Warden, did you want to make a comment?
I just wanted to make a comment. Yes, we were well noted. We knew about this a year ago that the federal government was going to double the gas tax for a year or two. Yeah, that was announced. Our former warden made big hoopla of it because he was on the FCM, and a year ago that FCM had arranged this funding. They were going to, double it. It was I forget how many billion it was right across the country, but everybody was going to get a bigger percentage of the pie. About time. Thank you.
I'm just curious, is this something that's going to continue, or is this a one-off?
This is a one-off.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the financial services report? Councillor Hudson.
Yes, on page 67, under the internet project short-term borrowing, it mentions that in the last sentence, the project is 50% complete. And it says, goes on further to say that connections will begin in June 21, and a tentative date for project completion is September of 21. Are we on schedule with that?
Mr. Dick, can you respond to that?
My understanding is that we are ahead of schedule in terms of connections. I think they're starting the connections as early as this week for selected groups. And the understanding is that they will be fully serviced by mid-September is what I understand.
Okay.
If I could ask a follow-up to that, by connections. Now, does connections mean somebody's going to come and run a line from the highway into my house? Is that what connections means?
That is how I understand it, yes. So they will have full service within that time frame from starting this week right through mid-September.
And so if you want to have a connection, I take it it's Seaside you call?
Yes.
Is that-
I understand there's also an application process. And so we will be communicating that. We discussed that last night. We'll have better communication on our webpage for information purposes, how to apply to Seaside to get those connections completed.
Yeah, I myself called and left my name and contact information whenever I'm ready to be hooked up. So that's something that people can do.
Right.
Councillor Redden?
Yeah, so just I noticed here we have issued a bunch of water disconnect orders for non-payment. Now it had been in conversation, it had come up that water disconnect could be used as a mechanism by landlords to get rid of tenants, and that by the landlord not paying the water bill, they could cause a water disconnect, and that would effectively force your tenant out of your property if that's what you wanted. Now, I mean, I know there's mechanisms for dealing with that if you're a tenant through the tenancy board and stuff like that. But I was a little disturbed / concerned that the county to be aware of that and get around being a party to that sort of situation.
Would anyone who has knowledge about these water disconnects be able to comment on whether what Councillor Redden has mentioned is in fact an issue? Anybody on staff that might know about this kind of thing?
Actually, could you, Councillor Redden, could you repeat that? Because I lost part of your question.
Yeah, my internet connection here is garbage at the moment. It was about water disconnects being used as a mechanism to remove tenants by a landlord not paying their water bill, so that the water gets disconnected, and then thereby the place is sort of uninhabitable. And I understand there's mechanisms to through tenancy board for tenants to deal with this, but it would be nice if we weren't kind of a part or to being a part of that.
Yeah. I think the question is just, are we aware of any of this going on, Ms. Ord?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
But now that we know, yeah, I'll pass that along to staff.
Thank you. Any other comments, Councillor Connell?
To do with the internet, I have had several calls on when they were going to start hooking up. So I'm glad to hear that they are supposedly going to hook up starting sometime this month. I saw that looked like everything was done at the Derek DeWolf office. One of my constituents asked if the county's going to have a policy that they can disconnect. Like if they go to Florida for the winter, other companies offer a one-time charge for disconnect for so many months and then they reconnect. So I just wanted to know if we were going to think about adding that into our situation. But the feedback from some of the people that had been hooked up to the county website are very pleased with it. The report from them is very good. So those are just some of the things that the constituents are asking.
Thank you. Any other comments? I don't see it. Oh, Deputy Warden.
Sorry, I just wanted to go back to the gas tax transfer, this one-time gas tax transfer. That, we know that's come from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. And, municipalities for years have been trying to get the province and the governments to give them more access to funding opportunities. And I believe that doubling the gas tax for a year was kind of a way to appease them, to say, well, you don't need any more. We'll give you this money out of that. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will call for the vote on the motion to receive the financial services report. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, well, we'll take a break. I've got 20 to 11. We'll come back in 10 minutes on the dot at 10 to 11.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, everybody. This is the resumption of the Committee of the Whole meeting for the County of Annapolis. The next item on the agenda is the CAO report, which is on pages 68 and 69 of the package. Are there any, is there a motion to receive? A second? Councillor Hudson seconds. Questions and comments for Mr. Dick? Mr. Connell, Councillor Connell, I should say.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because there's no report from municipal services. I had a citizen call me in the Margaret's water supply area asking questions about who would she get a hold of to find out if she could get hooked up, where she's at. I know the location, and I don't even know if there's enough pressure to push the water back up the road that she wants to build on. And there's no other houses on that road, but I know the water supply goes across the front of that road. So I would assume it would have to be either wait until our new engineer comes, or maybe one of the staff members could give a kind of an idea if the water could even be pushed up as far as she wants to build.
Sure, Councillor, if you could provide that information to me, I will endeavor to get a response back to the landowner.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any
Mr.
other
Warren,
questions?
if I can just make a couple of comments on
Sure.
my report.
Sure.
before, if there's any more questions, I'm happy to answer them. First, I'd like to increase the number of insurance carriers that have been have responded to our request for Basin View. That is now up to 37 denials. At the committee of whole last month, council had asked for a report on real estate for Bridgetown Elementary. I've just elected to do that rather than write a report to council. We will be issuing either an RFP or an expression of interest probably later this week, primarily to look at real estate services for the whole county, not specifically that property, but all properties that we have, if there's options that we want to divest ourselves of them. I will also say that we've had 2 unsolicited offers or interest from, I'm not sure if they're real estate people or developers about that particular property. The other recommendation for a staff report was about the agenda being on the website. So that we will be doing. And the warden and I have had some discussions about what goes on the website. Certainly, we will be very restrictive as to what goes in there. And one of the things that I've seen certainly in past agendas is letters to council and or councillors. I will be suggesting that those will not be put on the agenda because those are strictly for council and or councillors. But over the period of probably the next month or so, I will be sitting with the clerk and the deputy clerk, and we're going to start looking at some of the procedural bylaw, and we might be making some changes to how we report things to council and how council reacts to things. So at some point, we will be issuing a report based on what our recommendations may be, and then it could make for, in my opinion, maybe a fuller discussion at council in terms of committee of the whole and council. The tax sale we spoke about earlier, I'm hoping to have an answer on that later today. And I was hoping to have a summary of our financial investment in the whole internet project. I was hoping to have that for you today for your review. I suspect that I'll be able to do that for next Tuesday, just to give council a sense as to where we are in terms of costs and certainly in the process in terms of hooking up people. So hopefully that will be at the next council meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Hudson.
Yes, just in respect to your communication with the supervisor of the security team, that relates to their pays, does it?
It relates primarily to their pays, yes.
Yeah, okay. A second question, something totally different. Who was our new director of services, community services?
Public Works?
Yeah, Public Works, yeah.
Oh, so that is hasn't arrived yet. Still waiting on some protocols around the pandemic. Has accepted the position. He's an engineer with an MBA from presently working in Dawson. Prior to that, he was working in a number of cities around the GTA. The expectation is Sandu will be here sometime, hopefully before July. He's got a place to spend his 2-week quarantine period. And I suspect we'll be doing something very similar that council did for me. We will set him up with his laptop. He can start working sort of the minute he arrives. So when he actually gets physically on site, he'll have a good understanding of what the roles are. I have asked the former director if he can spend some time with the new director. Once he arrives, he has committed to as much time as we need, certainly in terms of introduction, taking him around to the site. So once the new engineer has arrived, of course, I'll be introducing him to council and introduce him to the community and to staff.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc.
Yes, this is a question for the CAO because she directed that you have 2 people of interest possibly on the school. We're not talking about the other 3 properties. He's just talking about the school property itself.
It's the entire property.
So
I haven't seen the request. It was a phone call, and we're waiting for something a little bit more detailed. But at least there's the industry is at least interested in looking at doing something there. So we'll wait and see what those are. And it won't prevent us from continuing the expression of interest. We will still be looking at that as an opportunity for other properties within the county.
You're
So
talking about
the
the bridge,
four-
you're talking about the Bridgetown School, right?
Correct. Yes.
So that's all 4 properties.
Yes.
Well, don't we have a problem with one of those properties not being ours? Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to ask Albert for those specifics. I'm not sure.
Other questions or comments? Councillor Longmire?
Thank you. This is through the warden to the CAO. Here I see, so 34, and you just reported that there are 37 insurance brokers who have declined. I'm just wondering, for the sake of the citizens, if there's any way of giving an understanding to them as to the reasons why all of them are declining. I suspect it's based on, of course, the reports that were had and completed, including the geotechnical studies, but I find I'm getting a lot of questions around that exact question.
And that's precisely what the rationale is based on all the reports that we provided to the insurance companies. There is risk associated with the property, and recognizing that they're all reporting to shareholders. At this point, none of them are willing to accept that risk. And I will also point out that in the report, I talk about meeting with or speaking with the Vice President of Insurance Bureau of Canada. We had a long chat last week, and one of the insurers is, in her opinion, an insurer of last resort. And I think they're only covering 15% of the risk associated with this property. So certainly, I can't fault our broker. Certainly at this point, if we've invested in communicating with 37 different insurance companies and they've all declined, I would suspect that there's still an opening until the 18th of June, but I suspect that the opening is getting smaller and smaller.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the CAO? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote on the motion to receive. Deputy Warden, did you have a question? No. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is my report. First of all, in the last month, Basin View has been at the top of the page for me. I have received many emails and phone calls from residents expressing concern over the anticipated closure of the Basin View Center. I've answered each one, explaining to them that the reason for the closure is the loss of insurance. If I missed anybody, I apologize, but I think I responded to everybody, both by telephone and email. The CAO and I attended at a Zoom call with Mr. Chris D'Entremont, the MP for the area, and Gordon Wilson, the MLA in the adjoining riding, because, as you know, we don't currently have an MLA here in Annapolis County. And other municipal leaders were on the call, and concerned citizens regarding the closure of Basin View and what might be done by way of government action. Both Mr. D'Entremont and Mr. Wilson said they would do what they could, but no great hope was there. The CAO and I also met with representatives of the YMCA to offer our assistance to them arising out of the closure of Basin View. Now, leaving Basin View, I've had essentially daily communications with our lawyers regarding the various legal matters that the county is still involved in. So that's a daily event for me on the various issues. I also meet or communicate daily with our CAO to discuss current matters and assist in his introduction to municipal practices. And I attended with Mr. Dick to meet with security personnel at the Upper Clements theme park and tour the property with a businessman with experience in carnival rides to see what we can do with respect to marketing the rides that we own on that site. And as usual, I've conducted my other warden duties. I attend every week to sign all the checks, and I deal regularly with all the other counselors during the month. Is there a motion to receive my report? So moved by the deputy warden, seconded by Councillor Longmire. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion's carried. Thank you for that. Next is the Trans-County Transportation Society report.
Thank you. A fairly short report.
We need a motion.
Oh, sorry.
Move to receive.
Move to receive by the deputy warden, second, Councillor LeBlanc.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Crouch, yes.
A synopsis, the highlights of our meeting. Retired TCTS driver Peter Whitley was recommended to be a new member of the board. Due to the COVID-19 lockdown, it's meant a decreased number of trips because during that period, TCTS did not go into the HRM. Also, since April until May 19th, when we met, there were 13 clients transported to get their COVID-19 vaccinations. And they were at that point anticipating more appointments as the vaccine became more available. The casual driver advertisement had been suspended until the resumption of normal service. And there was, and this ties in with an item earlier today, there was a discussion of how people who had an interest in serving on the accessibility committee could find out more information. And I suggested they check out our website. The one bit of news I did receive after this report was sent, and this was information that I received that effective as of yesterday, Monday, June the 7th, TCTS would resume all services back into the central region with the changes that came late last week. So with that, you're up to date from the Trans-County Transportation Society. Thank you.
Thank you for your excellent report, Councillor Proud. It's nice to see that set out succinctly in that one piece of paper for everybody. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions with respect to the Trans-County Transportation Society report? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote to receive on the motion to receive. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Next is the King's Transit Authority report. Is there a motion to receive?
Motion.
Deputy Warden moves. Councillor LeBlanc, would you like to second that?
Well, yes, as you can see, we're going forward. I do have on page 80, I mentioned the fact that we had a new GM for King's Transit, but I'm sad to report that that GM has just decided to take another position. So we are in, they are looking for another GM to take his place. So he is going to be there for the next month, and there will be somebody else in his position. Other than that, the important parts is the fact that the bus cleaning, because some citizens were concerned, but it's done at every point since it's Bridgetown. So it's basically every 2 hours they're cleaned, and it has been seen by the people and has been reported on social media that they are quite happy with the cleaning of the buses. The ridership has really not improved, but to the fact of where we were, we're down 50% in the east and 30% they've estimated in the west. And they are going to be looking at the agreements that they have with the partners to see if there should be a change in the agreements, because the agreement's been gone for quite a few years. I think it was gone 8 years ago. It should have been looked at. I'm not quite sure. I'm sure that Ms. Campbell or Ms. Ord can tell a date on that specific piece. But the most important part is the fact that they're looking at the budget 1 year at a time because of the electric buses they're thinking of looking at. And we are slated to be purchasing another bus in 23-24. And what they would like to know is, how is this bus going to be funded? Or are we going to purchase a bus in that year, or are we going to wait? Or we have to make a decision on that specific piece. So I think we should have a discussion with the CAO, the staff, and council on what our intentions are, or if we're going to wait after the feasibility study and how that looks, or whatever the case may be. And as you can see, there was a presentation made by a group, and looking to advertise and show the people and talk to the people and show concern, what their concerns are, etc. And there's a couple of pie charts that indicated what they found out. But of course, the pandemic of COVID-19 struck, and their work kind of stopped. This was all voluntary on their part. So they did a great deal of work in very little time. They were the ones that actually made the poster that goes on the King's Transit buses of wearing masks. And they're quite invested in transportation and making sure that it continues on in the valley. And if there's any questions, I can try to answer them.
Thank you very much, Councillor LeBlanc. Councillor Cotw, you have a question?
Yeah, on the chart on page 78.
78? Yeah.
Under Annapolis County buses.
Yes.
In the report, in the front of the report, it says bus 62 is to be replaced.
Yes.
It says km, kilometers. Is
Yes.
that how many, 747,000, is that how many kilometers our bus has on it now?
Yes.
And what is the 2021, 22, 40,000? It doesn't say what that 40,000 is for.
The 40,000 was to purchase that used bus from Halifax.
So the used reconditioned bus is 40,000?
That was the cost for purchasing that bus. Well, it was the cost for refurbishing the bus that was brought in from Halifax.
So there was no cost for the bus, we just had to pay for the refurbishing?
Correct. The most difficult parts about the buses is to finding pieces to repair the buses. But usually around 45,000 is the usual cost of the repairs that need to be done before it is placed on the road for use.
So once that bus is put on in use, we'll get a report that it's replaced bus 62.
Yeah.
And we can keep track of what the expenses that cost for repairing that bus as we go next year.
As far as going down the line, yes, they do a report on things that need to be done if needed. Yeah.
Because I had some phone calls from residents in the Cornwallis area. There was a rumor going around that we were going to cancel the bus line down there. But his concern is that a lot of times there's very few people on that bus. So he understood why we were doing the ask for the report back from our staff, because he felt that we could use a lot smaller bus. And that was coming from a resident. So I think that when we look at purchasing a bus down the road, I think we definitely have to have that a report of how many people are using it and the feasibility of the run versus buying a new bus. We got to figure out what size of bus we really need to handle the situation.
So having said that, that is why the report is being done. Stopping the service to the people on the west, on the east, on the west end has not been decided, has not even been talked about. Buying a bus is what we have to decide. Our counterparts have decided that they wouldn't want to be buying another bus in the 23-24 year as of yet, and we can decide whatever as a council we can do to continue the service, and buying the buses is some of the things we have to decide: size, shape, whatever. And another concern that was brought to me is the fact that these, I had citizens calling me that they need the bus service for going to school, or going to jobs, or going here or going there, and they have no vehicles and they want to have the bus continue. The next problem was the fact that the buses stop at Basin View, and where would this bus be stopping for pickup or exchange? They've mentioned that there was a bus shelter up by where the airplane used to be. And I know where that is, but I don't know if everybody knows where that is. So these are the things that need to be looked at as well as in our report, to have enough space for people to wait and get off the bus or get onto the bus, and as a shelter. So that's one thing that we might have to, well, we definitely have to look at. But I think one of the concerns is that we're thinking of canceling the bus service down the other end. And I think that should be addressed, and I'm giving that to you, Mr. Warden, to address.
There's been no discussion at council of canceling the bus service in that part of the county or anywhere else.
Thank you.
Deputy Warden.
Thank you. What we actually subsidize the bus service, that'll come out in this report that we're going to be presented.
I didn't catch that. I'm sorry. Is that a question to me?
No.
Oh, sorry.
More of the statement. But yeah, so that's going to come out in the report that we received from staff. But before we're ever faced with looking at any kind of closures or anything like that, which there's been no talk of, but we would like to know what we're actually subsidizing it. And before we're ever faced with anything, shouldn't we try to be taking some sort of proactive stance and trying to increase the ridership? And by telling people, listen, we can only subsidize things for so long if they're not used. I mean, I watch the bus day in and day out. Every time I see a bus go by in Annapolis County, I look to see what the ridership is on it. And I'm telling you right now, it's a good day if we got 3 people on board of one. Usually it's 1 or 2 little heads popping up. And, I know that it's a service, people need it, but we got to get more ridership. We got to get more use, because the municipality can't just subsidize it forever. Thank you.
Any other comments with respect to this report, Councillor Sheridan?
Oh, correct me if I'm wrong, but did we not already approve to purchase a bus last year?
Yes,
and it's in our capital budget.
What kind of a bus was that, Councillor Sheridan?
It was a brand new bus that we approved be purchased, and I think it's in our capital budget already. And I think it was close to 700,000 or 630,000 that we approved.
That would be Holly's answer.
Can someone at staff respond to that?
Yes, we have a new bus coming, it should be here this month or next. I think the total cost is 630,000. We are contributing 192,000 of our gas tax. The remainder is paid through our capital reserve that is sitting at King's Transit.
Thank you.
Councillor Sheridan, if you look at the page 78 that Councillor Connell had referred to, it does show up as a 2014 bus for $630,000.
Okay.
When it shows on the budget, this is the King's Authority budget, not our budget.
Right.
But I'm assuming that there is some correlation and that we do
Yes.
have it in our budget, as Ms. Oren has pointed out.
Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Connell?
But again, we review our capital budget every year, and we're not sure, I'm not sure what size of bus we've ordered. And if we get our report back and it says we can deal with a smaller bus in the west, then that might change from what was put in motion a year ago. So my concern is that we get the report, look at it, see what we need, and make a decision on what size of bus is needed at that point. So that could change.
Can somebody on staff or maybe Councillor LeBlanc answer whether we've already committed to buy the bus that's this, it's a vicinity 2014 vicinity bus? Have we already committed to buying that?
Yes, we have. We've already ordered it. It was ordered a year ago. It's just COVID has delayed it.
It's
Thank
a
you.
year late.
Yeah. So I guess
Well,
Councillor
we-
Connor will be looking to the future with respect to the buses. Other comments with respect to King's Transit? Councillor Barteau? You're still muted, Councillor Barteau.
We lost them.
There he is.
Okay. I
Yeah,
tried
we've
hitting
got
my
you.
space bar and it just obliterated me. The report says, is it a clerical area? It says a 2014, but I'm hearing that we're paying 630,000 for a brand new bus. What, can somebody clarify that for me? Are we paying new price for a 2014, or what's the information that we have on that? Or is there just a mix up in the paperwork?
Can anyone respond? I took it that it's new to us, but maybe. Anybody on staff or Councillor LeBlanc can respond to whether we should be getting a new bus, whether we bought a new bus or a used bus?
I'll take a stab at this. We ordered the bus, it was due last year. Because of COVID, it's coming, well, supposedly at the end of this month of July. And that is that bus, the $630,000 that would be replacing the vicinity bus.
So it's replacing a 2014 bus, or it is a 2014 bus?
No, it's replacing. The 2014 vicinity bus is our newest bus, the smaller one that you see going down the road.
So I'm confused. So is that, are we buying this vicinity 2014 bus, or are we buying a brand new bus?
No, we're buying a brand new bus to replace the vicinity, the 2014 vicinity bus, which is the smallest of our buses.
Okay.
Does
Is
that
it a
answer the
comparable?
question?
Yeah, Councillor Barteau, you had another follow-up
So is that a
question?
comparable size bus and why is it being replaced when it's got less miles on it than another bus that we have online? I'm just not
Because
sure.
after their studies, they found with Mr. Bannon, the GM found that that particular bus, there's 3 of them, and one in Digby County, one in our county, one in Kings, and ours is the best of the 3 buses, but they do not have great wear and tear on our roads. It's costing a lot of money in repairs. And having said that, again, our vicinity bus is the best of the 3. So he concluded that the bus couldn't take all the mileage being put on it, we needed a bigger, better bus. So that's what we're purchasing to replace.
So the replacement bus is a bigger one.
Yes, a brand new one, just like the other bus we have. The same size as the other bus.
Okay.
Is it 60 passenger? No, it's not. What is it? I don't know what. Anyways, it's one of the bigger buses.
I guess we're going against the grain of downsizing because of ridership. We're putting a bigger bus on the road. That was my concern.
Well, this was done before the pandemic, right?
Deputy Warden, you had a question?
Thank you. More of a clarification. When Mr. Bannon was still here last year, he said we were going to bigger buses. They were better, they served better, and that these small buses, according to him, our roads around here were in too rough a shape for those small buses to hold up.
Correct. Yeah.
And so they went to a bigger bus,
yeah,
which turns out are, I think, about the same price as the small bus.
Pretty close, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote on the motion to receive. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Next is the information report, joint occupational health and safety. Is there a motion to receive, to put that on the table? Deputy Warden moves, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote on the motion to receive. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. So now we're going to go in camera with respect to 3 different types of matters. One is personnel. One is contract negotiations, and one is litigation or potential litigation. Just a minute, Councillor Redden, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I would ask to add an extreme late addition to the agenda. With regard to your email, I have some about late additions to the agenda. I have some comments I would make if you'll allow me the time to do
that. What is it you want to talk about late additions? Or do you have a late addition? What is it?
I have a late addition I would like to add, yeah. And I'd like to add some commentary as to why I feel we should speak about it now, and that and as to why I'm adding it so late to the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
This is quite unusual that at this stage you're wanting to bring something up, but perhaps you could tell us why it is that it won't wait, or it has to be dealt with today.
I think it is prudent for us to be dealt with today. I mean, it's not something that I think is, the world's not going to end if we don't deal with it today. It's this idea of an impact study around the closing of the Basin View Center, and the reason I wanted to bring it up was, but it was quite a directed comment, group of comments from residents, and I thought that it should be brought up in some fashion to let them know that we are in fact listening. We've all been informed quite equally on it, and that we've all had the same emails. And as to the tardiness of it, it wasn't until late last night, and my thoughts while doing the dishes this morning at about 8:15 that I had really had any appetite for bringing it forward to the council myself. And so I thought we could have a discussion without necessarily a motion. I don't support the idea that was brought forward by residents necessarily, but I do have some thoughts along the general idea they were trying to bring forward. And yeah, I guess that kind of says it. I mean, I can speak about it directly if you want, but.
Is there,
I have, sorry.
Warden,
we've
an
got-
actual item?
Pardon me?
Is there an actual item?
Well, let me, if I could just respond. You know, the CAO did talk about Basin View. I talked about Basin View. You were able to bring up any discussion about Basin View at that time. And I would suggest, you know, I sent this email around that if somebody's going to bring something up in council, the rest of the council should have some idea of what it is that they want to talk about, instead of just bringing something up and everybody kind of having to get their thoughts together as we speak. Perhaps you want to put it on the agenda for next week at the council meeting.
Yeah,
And you
well,
could-
I'm happy to do that, Warden, and I can circulate it by email. Then
Yeah, why don't you set out in an email to the clerk what it is that you know, you really want to discuss, and then we'll all have some notice of it. She can put it on the agenda, and we can talk about it at the council meeting next week. Is
Happy
that
with
fair enough?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Okay. Now, in camera, is there a motion to go in camera with respect to the items that I've itemized? Deputy Warden moves, seconded by Councillor Longmire. Any discussion about going in camera on these items? I don't see any, so I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.
So I'm
So
I'm pausing the recording, and then David will move the public to the waiting room.
Yes.
thank you. So we're back into the open session of this committee of the whole meeting. And with respect to the Basin View Center, the CAO, Mr. Dick, has some information to give to the public.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Warden. And if you'll excuse me that I'm reading this. Firstly, we want to thank the community for the continued engagement and interest in the recent decision by council to close the Basin View Center because of lack of insurance. As the community is aware, council issued an expression of interest to determine if an alternative ownership structure for the center was an option. The expressions of interest closed June 4th with a viable option. This option provides a recommendation that, subject to continued due diligence, remediation efforts on the facility will be engaged on a completely closed building. Staff and the proponent are scheduled to commence negotiations on this transfer beginning tomorrow.
Thank you. And just to clarify for the public, and I don't want to go too far, but the building will still close. And there is a proponent out there that we will negotiate with, and the terms of something that can be worked out will be revealed to the public as soon as we can. Is there anything else for our agenda today, councilors? I don't see any hands up, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Sheridan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much, councilors.
Thank you.